This morning, the suspension of a Supreme Court judge, Justice Alan B. Hallowell, has drawn controversy and has widened the attention of some people, journalists, lawyers, and even the public. Now, with a letter dated 15th September 2025, coming from the office of the President stating that pursuant to 137 subsection 6 of the 91 Constitution of Sierra Leone, and acting in accordance with the advice of the Judicial and Legal Services Commission, that Honorable Justice Alan B. Hallowell has been suspended pending investigation in a tribunal. What transpired in the meeting with members at the Legal Service Commission seems not to be in the secret, as Justice Reginald S. Finn wrote to the President on his dissent, reserving on the decision made by the Commission that they did not act according to law, justice and fairness, which has made the suspended judge wrote to the President. So this morning, generally, to continue our series of conversations around the controversy, we have been joined also by Abdul Fatoma. Abdul is a Chief Executive Campaign for Human Rights and Development International, for short, CHAIRD. We were also expecting to be joined this morning by, well, a staff or a member of the Judiciary of Sierra Leone, but they haven't shown up. It's almost becoming habitual for government, reps not to show up for journalistic interviews these days. But we are continuing our conversation this morning. Good morning, Abdul.
Good morning, and thanks for
pleasure.
having me. Pleasure always to be among you two.
You've been following, I wouldn't say you've been following really, you've been one of the most prominent architects shaping, justice in Sierra Leone. You've been advocating, criticizing, praising where necessary the judiciary and its reforms generally in Sierra Leone, not only this government, but even previous government. But things are changing fast, if I should say, and they're becoming more alarming, these things that are changing. We saw, of course, as you've heard, the suspension of this judge, which has brought about a lot of criticism, actually. A lot of people are saying that, well, it ought not to have been done in the first place. Or some other people are saying, oh no, that was an outright infradig on the state and it ought to be removed. Where do you stand, Abdul, this morning?
Our organization position is very clear, Mr. Jones. Respect for rule of law should be the rule, not the exception. The disregard to laws in this country shadow over this country's economic and security activities. If you have a judiciary expected by law or the rule of law to respect legal authorities, but they are blatant in disregarding provisions in our law with no reservation of respect or moral to the society, we as a country, we need to be worried. I put the current scandal, open scandal, that overshadow the judiciary. We as an organization have tested the ability and the will of the judiciary when it comes to respect for law, and they have failed that woefully. In this country, the Constitution is very clear. It mandated judges, after they have listened to cases from both sides, argument, they have a mandate to rule on that matter within 3 months. Cases have been set aside for ruling over a year and more than. Our case is an example. In November last year, the judiciary, the judge who preside over our administrative judicial review, he put that matter aside for ruling since November, and this is September. if you count the month, it's clear that the judiciary and that judge, they have no respect, no regard for the constitutional provisions that they are apt to interpret and to respect. You have the right to access to information Act that says within 15 days, if you as a journalist or citizen or civil society ask a public institution for public information, within 15 days, they should respond to you. We have done that twice, and the judiciary up to date have not bothered to respect the provisions in that law. If that is not a disregard or disrespect for laws, and why do you want to enforce law on businesses? Good investment companies that want to comply with laws will not venture to come to Sierra Leone because they know that judges or magistrates who are bound to respect law and interpret law, they are reckless, they are irresponsible to uphold to those provisions of the law. I mean, if you don't want to set example, what moral example do you have to talk about ethics? When you flout law, when you disregard law, when you don't respect law, and then the worst among themselves, a Supreme Court judge wrote a letter. We were copied in that letter, crying for justice, highlighting the blatant violations of constitutional provisions and human rights. And as if he doesn't have a right to survive in a democratic society that's supposed to recognize and respect the provisions of rule of law, which promote good governance to ensure that people are held accountable for their actions. He was then dragged into an illegal, unrecognized committee that was disorganized, have no respect for processes and procedure. For God's sake, Section 1401 gives the mandate to this country to establish the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. And it says the Chief Justice should or shall serve as a chairperson. And that particular body is supposed to advise the performance and function towards administration of the judiciary to the Chief Justice. So with that, the composition is very clear. The Chief Justice, the Senior Appeals Court Judge, the Solicitor General from the Office of the AG. That means that there is still that link between the executive and the judiciary. And the chairman for Public Service Commission, a representative with more than 10 years of practice or experience in the bar, nominated by the Bar Association and appointed by the President, and two other people who possibly may not require to have a legal background, but should be appointed or shall be appointed by the President of Sierra Leone. So that is the composition. And later on, we hear from a judge through a letter describing how shambolic that system was, how disgraceful it looks like, and how embarrassing it is. And our country have been really put behind the queue in terms of promoting respect for rule of law, democracy, and human rights. We should be worried as a country. We should be reminded what the Truth and Reconciliation Commission recommendation told us about the recklessness and the breakdown of the judicial process in this country that creates discontentment against, ourselves as a people. And we burn down houses, we cut down limbs, and we take this country backward. And today, it reflects in our educational system, in our social and economic life. We as a people, we should stand up to say no to this nonsense that is going on and urge the president of this country to bring normalcy to the judiciary.
You know, I mean, this is, it's a confusing situation, you know. A Supreme Court judge crying for justice, a man who ordinarily should be the one administering justice in Sierra Leone. It's almost an enigma that could be very difficult to solve. Do you think this reveals further the cracks within the judiciary? I mean, a lot of people don't even believe in the courts these days. Just yesterday on AOAB on Sunday, we were discussing peace in Sierra Leone and how fragile it has become, you know. And the very TRC report you just cited, I mean, parts of it also said it was things like these that led to the war. People didn't believe in the justice system. Resources were unevenly shared, you know, unemployment and all of these things. It appears as though what the TRC had warned us against are the things we are doing today. How are these things endangering Sierra Leone further, Abdul, this morning? And how do you think we can solve it?
I mean, we have a solution to it when we have the political will to ensure that the judiciary work for the people, a people-centered justice system. But what we have is not a people-centered justice system. What we have is a microwave, micromanaged system that people think that because they are exposed to power, they can absolutely abuse that power. And that is what we as a people, we need to stand against. It's not a secret in this country that people lack trust and confidence in the judiciary. Imagine this very judge that has been suspended, you know, according to, you know, Dahil advice. Somebody reported him to us through a letter. And saying something about his case, the way his case was managed, you know, by this very judge. So you look at judges in this country and magistrates, there is a likely possibility of fingers pointing at them for being corrupt, or files before them get disappeared, or files before them get moved. And that is the reason why our organization have called on the government of Sierra Leone through the president of this country to ensure that we do an administrative inquiry, like the way we do commission of inquiry, an administrative inquiry into the judiciary. Why has the judiciary failed us as a nation year in, year out, you know, one administration to another? We have not got any good thing. The last time the judiciary of Sierra Leone had their very first strategic policy document, that was within 2016 to 2021. Since then to date, each of these guys who occupy this seat just think off their head. They will undo what their colleagues have done and decide to work the way they want. And they have a uniform language, want to expedite justice. But the very people who want to expedite justice, before moving to that point, they had backlog of cases before they move. And they will come and choose cabal, work with those cabal, and those cabal will be overloaded because they have cases. The sad thing is that most of these guys establish chamber in secrecy, groom up their boys, and ask them to set up chamber, and cases come to them, they refer those cases to those chambers, and the outcome of those matters determined before even they are laid before a judge. That is worrisome to us, and this actually made people don't have trust and confidence. We called on people who have cases more than 9 years before the court. We have recorded high number of citizens. I mean, some are even unhappy and have no hope or trust in the system. And you cannot live in a country where you don't trust your legal system. What that breeds, it's lawlessness. People will be taking law into their own hands. What that will cause? Insecurity for the state.
Let's look at the entire situation, how it was done, and the president's involvement. What makes any of this wrong?
What makes it wrong is because, like I said in my openings, I said respect for rule of law should be the rule,
so
not the exception.
How wasn't the rule of law respected in this situation?
It was not respected because rules were not followed.
How? What rules were there to be followed that were not followed?
There are processes and procedures. One, there is a particular provision in the Constitution. I mean, that particular ones at least give a fresh of breath here for a judge, that you should not be worried if you decide on a matter in the interest of the public or in interest of justice, not by political pressure. Your salary or your allowance should not be tampered. The word is share, mandatory. Not even the president of this country, not anyone. But now, a strong letter saying that the Chief Justice of this country tampered with that very provisions and make it, disregard the relevance of that provision based on the letter from the Supreme Court judge. And then, according to the law, a committee should have set up, investigate this man, and then recommend to President for his removal. But then what we see, it's a complete reverse. And what exposed again, somebody who is the head of ethics committee, ethics as they call it, said they brought in old newspaper, 2010, 2011, 2013, and just 3 letters, recent letters, and saying that this is a misconduct. And so with that, the order, I mean a committee order, a court should do order, but now a committee order that this judge should be suspended and stop its operation. And then a committee which you and I have no clue about their terms of reference, but they should work in public interest. You know, when they set up the Commission of Inquiry, we know their terms of reference. When they set up a tribunal against Madam Taylor Pierce, you know, we know the terms of reference, we know the individuals. But in this case, a PR, you know, a representative from the judiciary was on radio and online TV counting his fingers, calling 3 people, that these are the people who have been assigned to be on the panel for the tribunal. So you look at how that process was done, it was unprocedural. And when issues are non-procedural, then definitely. Then they also failed to look into the grievance concern this man raised. So they more considered about misconduct than his own grievance, concern about his personal health, concern about the constitutional violations, concern about, I mean, disregard to a Supreme Court judge and other judges. In his letter, he raised concern widely about disregard among other judges. And I've said on this platform and other platforms that we have a lot of judges who are disgruntled, like these guys who call it, you know, on the tag ground, disgruntled. They are unhappy. And that unhappiness can be seen when you go around the court building. Informations that you as an outsider, you should not be privy to. I mean, these informations are available to some of us. And we make use of it as our advocacy too. But in a well-coordinated, unified work environment, it's very difficult for you actually to sniff on information, not only sensitive information, but information itself, unless the one for public consumption. I mean, that's the reason why they are ashamed, they are afraid to face the public, because they know the messes they have created. Those who defend them, they are ashamed of their family for lying blatantly, to the public by covering the mess done by people who they look up to.
The trust issues that people have in the justice sector in Sierra Leone has led to a pressure, I would say, on the ECOWAS court, because now what we see is cases that, people aren't satisfied with the judgment here is now taken to the ECOWAS court. Is there something wrong with this?
Yeah, it's something wrong with that. I mean, it clearly shows that we have not been working in the best interest of our people. Like I said, the people-centered justice. We are the people who have confidence and trust in the legal system. And because, there was one town hall meeting around justice issue. The president was a keynote speaker on that. And somebody from the audience asked him if he believed in the justice system. He said he himself has been a victim of the system. So he was asking us that it is our responsibility for all of us to fix it. So you have millions of citizens in this country who have been a victim of the bad justice system of this country. If now probably you look through your comment section, you can see that. Political parties have been victim. Politicians have been victim. The common businessmen have been victim. The school children have been victim. University students have been victim. So journalists, civil society have been victim. And civil society organizations like Chadi, we have been a victim. They sit on our case up to now as we speak.
President Bio himself has been a victim before, as he said.
Yeah.
Right now, he sits at the helm of affairs as the president. What role can he play in all this when the judiciary itself is supposed to be independent?
I mean, I have witnessed where people were given a report, Parliament and the judiciary, in his 100 days for this very second term and last term for him, as he said to the public. And the judiciary gave a discrepancy and also unreliable reports to him, which was not the truth. And we're supposed to have 3 arms of government, and these arms are independent in words, but not even in the constitutional text. Because in a case where the president is the one who appoints the Chief Justice, Supreme Court judges, then with these days of loyalty in our world, you start questioning how independent that judiciary will be. And also, in a case where the president have the latitude by the constitutional power to suspend a judge and pending for investigation and set up a committee, and that committee also report to him, and he will take the reports to Parliament, then you start knowing. And he is also a member of Parliament. When he goes to Parliament, the Speaker vacates his seat. He's not an MP, but when he goes to Parliament based on the Constitution to share his governance report, or whenever he wants to address Parliament, he has that opportunity by constitutional power. So when you actually look at our Constitution, it didn't create any opportunity for the judiciary to be absolutely independent. And when we're talking about review, these are some of the review that we should talk about. How do we remove our judiciary in the hands of politicians and make it more functionable and more independent?
As it stands currently in the country, we seem to have many leaders who tend to do exactly what they please, almost disregarding what the general population seeks. We've seen in other countries where issues, trivial issues, you would say in our own context, trivial issues would lead some people to be sacked or to resign in other parts of the world. Here, no matter how much pressure the media or civil society put on certain issues, things don't seem to change much. The people in authority who have the power to attend to those concerns don't budge. Is there hope that this could be any different?
I think they're exploiting the poor economical situation in this country and taking the people of this country for granted. But one thing I know about Sierra Leone, we are resilient, as the politicians will always say, but when we want to bounce back, nothing holds us. We did that against the RAF. We did that against the NPRC. When they said election before peace, peace before election, and then the Sobels and others, you know, we are chasing people out of town. People chase them out of town and protect their ballot boxes and welcome, you know, democracy in this country. And when the RAF said enough is not enough, the people of this country stood up against them and said enough is enough. So for far too long, if politicians continue to hold us, you know, for granted, I think there will be a time they're going to pay the price, and they will pay for it very heavily through justice means. It's about the people, and if they don't want to respect law, and they so much believe, I think if they know and understand moral ethics, we should have a lot of resignation now from the judiciary. But lack of moral ethics and belief in morality, and that is the reason why we continue to see more reckless behavior and irresponsible behavior at the helm of, you know, that particular arm of government, and messing the legal system and justice system of this country. What I want the security sector to know, that it is a crisis for security issue. And if they think it's only a legal issue, they should think. And what I want the Ministry of Finance to know, or Ministry of Development to know, no serious or sober-minded investors wants to invest in a country that the citizens, they themselves, don't have trust and confidence in their legal system. So the government of Australia needs to act now, unless this country is running down faster to the slope of lawlessness.
Before now, Abdul, the European Union Observer Mission for elections recommended that some of these places, the powers at the top are divulged. It is their opinion that heads of these institutions should be appointed by neutral bodies, for example, the head of the Judiciary, the SLBC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, all of these other electoral commission of Sierra Leone. Do you think it will ever be possible for us to arrive at that stage? Because what is happening now didn't begin today. It had started actually under the APC and the SL people have been seeing these gross violations. And it's even becoming bolder, right? More audacious, if you like. It's almost as though fear is gone, right? The regard for people and human rights is even eroded, grossly so. Can such a mechanism fix the deficiencies we are seeing now, as in having neutral bodies, examining people, and employing the right people, not necessarily by the president though, but neutral academic, or if you like, professional bodies, putting people in the right places? Will that solve it, do you think?
I think with the recommendation from the National Unity, it's about to set up similar thing like that. Okay. For the Electoral Commission, ECSL. So there should be a body that is independent, comprises of civil society, trade union, and other professionals. They will actually, the president, I mean, these people will face this scrutiny body and then recommend some numbers to the president. And among that number is the choice of the president to choose. Either it could be 4, 3, or 2. And it will be for the liberty of the president to choose. And then, as the makeup of our current society, where we lack trust among ourselves, as well, not only our public institution, you will start wondering who will be these people. Because again, it's the very government that will be appointing these people. So who will make up that very committee or structure? So if we test that one, it has worked in other countries like South Africa, Kenya, and you see a whole lot of trust into their public institutions like the judiciary. But in our own case, it's a complete reverse, and today we have the judiciary running away to discuss, even though they were out during a march pass, something way back in 12th century, introduced by Britain, and in the 70s, Britain have run away from that. But they think that it's colorful for them to march and celebrate failure and celebrate lawlessness and celebrate, the killing of justice system in this country. But they are shy away to face the people of this country for the scandal that they have been awashed with at that building. It's a shame, it's a disgrace, it's embarrassing to each and every one of us in this country, not only those who work for that institution.
Abdul, going forward, I think there should be recommendations, generally. Of course, it's no gainsaying that what we are seeing is ugly, and would even push investors away. A nation that is serious about investment and even tourism, some of these anti-human rights activities would definitely, dent our image internationally, particularly at a time when our president is sitting at the United Nations as chair of ECOWAS, and a first lady who is chairing other first ladies of LAD across Africa. What does this say about our image internationally, and what recommendations would you proffer? Immediate recommendations, because we should not wait any longer.
As it is, the current situation that cloud over the judiciary, it is an embarrassing situation for this country that undermines our effort to promote good governance, respect for democracy, or respect for rule of law. And like I said earlier, the government needs to do an administrative inquiry into the judiciary now, not any other time, but now, to know exactly what is going on. And people who brag about working through the rank of magistrate to Supreme Court or to Appeals Court, we should look into their track records, why is they were in those positions. And why is it that the office of the Master and Registrar, always, accused of corruption. As we speak, the Supreme Court, registrar on suspension, allegations around corruption, forgery, and the Master and Registrar, as we speak, the substantive on suspension also, getting paid, and for corrupt allegations as well. We have a judiciary that you have every Chief Justice come in, they have a uniform language, they want to expedite justice, they want to make sure that the judiciary is accountable, and then when civil society and the media want to hold them accountable, they behave as if that they are above the law, and that is not the subject. No man is above the law of this country. We only have exemption and true immunity, that's the office of the president, but no other man or institutions are above the laws of this country. They are subject to the law. And it's very clear in the Constitution that the judiciary should work with the provision of the Constitution and other law. And so where we think they are subjected to that law, and we bring them to action to respect that law, but in a blatant disregard. And the most unfortunate and frustrating thing, other democratic institutions, either they are incapable or they are coward, they don't believe in their administrative power, are scared of taking responsibility to hold the judiciary to action, like the right to access to information. They were there enough to go after Bank of Sierra Leone and other institutions, NMA, but they dare not challenge an institution like the judiciary, who is in a habit of a blatant disregard to the right to access. What good example are they setting? If other people turn down the right to access request and they take them to the judiciary, and with the same judiciary who rule against the Bank of Sierra Leone to divulge such information, and who are in the habit now responding to civil society organization requests under the same law that they are interpreting. How disgraceful is that? How embarrassing is that? You're killing trust, you're killing confidence. And, you know, the Chief Justice was out talking to the new recruited magistrate in this country that they should go out, build trust and confidence. Why the very institution is killing that trust and confidence. So what message are they really sending to the people of this country? Not only the staff that works for them.
Speaking of message, Abdul would round off with reading a few messages from our Facebook page. Maria Brando says, Fabian, what Abdul is saying makes sense about politicians taking Sierra Leoneans for granted. Under the guise, Sierra Leoneans are resilient people. A typical case in hand is the police IG who officially turned 60 years last week and is supposed to go on retirement but still reported for duty this morning as the police IG, and the government seems to be pretending as if they are not aware. These are all corrupt practices that have held our country backwards. Amadou Kagbo says, AYV, you should have brought someone from the judiciary to have a balanced debate. Fatoma has been a perpetual critic of the judiciary, and he may not be 100% correct in all. Amadou Kagbo, let us also remind you again, because Victor had mentioned earlier, we extended an invitation to the judiciary to send a representative. Nobody showed up. But yes, we played our part by inviting the other side to respond to questions. They did not show up. And their choice to not show up would not drown the conversation. Those who make it to the program would have an opportunity to respond to questions. Those who choose not to show up, it's just what it is. But we played our part by extending an invitation to them. They just chose not to honor that invitation, just to remind you. But yeah, those are the messages we'll just take and we round off. This person says you've always been a critic and you're not always correct.
Even the judiciary have not been, even when they contest our position, they have lost it woefully always. All the positions we put. We don't mind with our words. We don't create false informations. We talked about the reality. I said we are in court. Our matter was set aside since November to date for ruling. Up to now, nothing has happened. If he has, a strong evidence about that they have ruled on our matter, and we, the, litigant, have no clue about that, we want to know. A man who wrote to me a letter, since 2007, his matter has been in court. He feels unjust about the justice system of this country. If he thinks that man is lying, and then he should, hold up with him. He should also put such a strong energy to say the judiciary has been a perpetual disrespecter of laws of this country.
All right.
Thank you very much, Abdul Fatoma, for being a part of the program.